night may be long and the dark may be deep, but the answers are there to be found. Whether it's the normal, the abnormal, or the paranormal, you're in the right place. Let's go beyond reality.
You know, one thing that I know you're used to, I'm used to it as well, is controversy. When you start talking about anything paranormal or unusual or fringe, you're going to have controversy. Whether we're talking about flat earth theory or hollow earth theory or ghosts, demons, or faked moon landings, all of these things breed controversy. And tonight, we're going to step further into the realm of controversy. And it's important to understand that when we feature guests on the program, we feature them to be able to tell their side and their opinions and their story. And we let people make up their own minds as to whether or not it should be something that they subscribe to, they believe in, they don't believe in, they dislike, they like, whatever it happens to be. Our job here is just to convey the information and offer a forum for people to talk about things that may or may not have some relevance in what we're doing.
Well, and I think that's the thing. We need to be able to listen to other people's beliefs and thoughts and the way they view things. And whether we follow that same path or not, I think people still need to understand that everybody has a different belief system. And they need to accept that. And I think that's a lot of the problem out there this day and age. And but we're going to do our own thing, like it or not. Right.
And having said all of that, we've got a very, very interesting show lined up for you tonight. We have, and we've been talking about it for the beginning, first couple nights of the week. Blanche Barton will be joining us. Blanche is a Magistra Templii Rex of the Church of Satan. We're going to be discussing what that means. We're also going to be discussing magic and how it relates to that, and the founder of that church, Anton LaVey. It promised to be a very interesting and controversial topic. We will take your phone calls later in the program at 844-687-7669. But controversy by itself isn't a bad thing. It's good to listen to what people have to say, particularly those who you may not agree with. It's the way you learn, and it's the way you show some of these values that we talk about in being tolerant.
Well, and I think a lot of it has to do also with the name. The minute you hear the name of the church, people instantly get this feeling of devil worshiping and so forth. And we'll get into a lot of that later, but honestly, the church really doesn't even believe in the devil, nor Christianity or anything like that. So they have their own belief system. So I think it's a really big misconception. Are they my beliefs? No, but I enjoy hearing everybody out, whether it's anybody practicing a different religion than myself, or somebody who has different beliefs in politics than me. So all in all, it's good to get everybody's point of view.
Yeah, and that's what we'll be doing tonight. Again, we have Blanche Barton coming on in a little bit.
Head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio, like the Facebook page for us. Then head to beyondrealityradio.com, where, like JV said, you can find the coffee mugs. You can also find all the stations we are on across the country. That list is constantly being updated. New stations are being added all the time, so check it often. You can also download the free iPhone and Android app right there, which allows you to listen live, catch past shows, join the online chat, and more. Or you can listen right from the website just by clicking the pop-up button or the Listen Live button. Pop-up button will connect you into an online chat room where you can listen to the show, hanging out with a great community of people. Or just the Listen Live button, you can listen right from the website while just doing your own thing.
Yeah, it's a great thing to do. I think we probably should just get right into this conversation. You getting ready to do that?
Yes, I think so. Let's take a quick break, and then we'll have our guest, Blanche Barton from the Church of Satan on.
Hey, everybody. Thanks for listening to Beyond Reality Paranormal. I'm your host, JV Johnson. I'm going to ask that you support this program. The easiest way to do that, by the way, is if you're listening as a podcast, you just open up the description of the episode and you scroll down to the bottom. And at the bottom, there is a link that says support this podcast. If you click on that, you'll be taken to a page that gives you a couple of options for supporting the show. We greatly appreciate it. It helps us bring great programs to you every week, and we look forward to continuing to do that. And if you're enjoying the program on YouTube, there's another way you can support the show. Just go to the description. You'll see a link to a Patreon page. It's Johaw, Johhaw. And if you go to the Patreon page, you'll be able to pledge an amount to help support the show as well. Once again, thanks for your support. Thank you for listening. Please share it with your friends. All right, so we're going to bring our guest in. Our guest tonight is Blanche Barton. Blanche is a Magistra I'm trying to read my handwriting, and I can't even do it, Jay. She's a Magister Templi Rex of the Church of Satan. The website is churchofsatan.com, and I'm going to start right out here, Blanche. I'm sure you hear this all the time. This may or may not be, but on the surface, it appears to be a very, very controversial topic. What do you say to people who are immediately offended by the fact that this is the topic?
I say we must be doing our job. Anton started the Church of Satan in 1966. We've been around for over 50 years now. And one of the points that he wanted to make with calling it the Church of Satan rather than, the Beelzebub or, Lucifer or something maybe even a little less offensive is that it's ruled by things that you've been taught, from your grandparents' knee or your mother's knee that are bad or evil or wicked. There's a lot of scapegoating that goes on, demonizing, and how dangerous that is. We get a lot more people involved if they got over the S word, but the S word is rather the point. When you start thinking about, I have a knee-jerk reaction to the word Satan in my life. What does that mean? How am I vulnerable to the way people want to manipulate me in the media, in politics, in advertising? We have a lot of trigger words. I think even more now than in 1966, we're being divided as a nation, as a world, by these trigger words, and it's more important than ever to realize how dangerous scapegoating and demonizing is.
We have to, that's a great point. We've got to back this up just a little bit, though. Let's get some definitions out of the way so that we're all talking about the same things as we have this conversation. So to start out, what exactly is Satanism?
Satanism is a religion, as I say, was started in 1966. There were certainly people that were called Satanists before that, but largely it was a construct of people who wanted to demonize other people and scare people into spending money and supporting organizations and staying on the right path, whatever that right path for society was defined to be. In reality, there's always been a satanic figure in most cultures. There's the trickster, there's the coyote, there's the one who tempts and urges us to do the naughty things. Sometimes they're very creative ways to go. For example, Prometheus, I would consider a satanic figure, bringing the fire from the gods, stealing the fire from the gods, and giving it to mankind. And in our own Judeo-Christian mythology, we have the snake in the Garden of Eden who tempted Eve with the apple. And, that was the temptation of the knowledge of good and evil and the knowledge that would give you, put you on an equal par with God. So there's always been a Miltonian satanic heroism in our culture and in other cultures. The defiant one, the one who is the risk taker, who's the underdog, who triumphs even though he's, vilified, sort of a solitary, Byronic character, and that's what we sort of pattern ourselves on. It should be known that we don't worship the devil or Satan by any means. We worship ourselves, but we use the metaphor of the fallen one, of the defiant one, as that creative drive within all of us that I think humans can relate to very well.
And I think the name actually is what puts a lot of people on edge, and they automatically think of it as a negative thing instead of the views like you just brought up. Sure.
And again, that's because there's been 2,000 plus years of propaganda leading to that conclusion. I think the tide is turning. I think people understand, again, how dangerous it can be to make an us versus them kind of blanket statement. I think we're understanding about how religion can really separate people and be very dangerous to a culture. We're not just atheistic, we're anti-theistic because when you have an attitude of we're good and these other people or these other beings or these other forces are evil, then it makes it very easy for you to dehumanize someone, And again, we see this in the world today, and you'd think that with the post-Enlightenment world, we'd have a lot more awareness. But it seems that we're getting more and more tribal. We're getting more divided, and we can't even talk to each other. We can't even which, again, I think Satanism is more needed now than it ever has been, because of that very thing. We need to be able to respectfully debate on very important world-shaking issues. And again, we seem to be just retreating into this vile us versus them tribalism that isn't going to be helpful for humans on this earth, and certainly isn't helping the planet or the animals that we're supposed to be responsible for.
Well, and that's the thing. Before we had you on, JV and I were talking, and the main thing is that we want people to understand is whether we all share the same belief or not. It's good to be able to listen to each other's beliefs and accept that person's beliefs may differ from yours without it being a defensive mechanism where it instantly starts some sort of an angered debate or just a thing of pure hatred. And I think that's a lot of the problem. Like, I don't know you from a hole in the wall, but I have respect that you have faith in your belief system, whether it's the same as mine or not. Hey, whatever, to each their own. Just like you have a different belief system than I do. And, but in return, we can sit here and talk in a professional manner with respect for one another about these differences.
Well, that's the wonderful part of your show. Is, you have a lot of interesting ideas, a lot of different viewpoints on your show, and you allow people to speak their mind, to say what their experience has been or what they believe, and be respectful and different people's mythologies and where they're coming from, what their past is, what their cultural past is, what their music is, what their foods are, what they get excited about. I mean, and Satanists, the interesting thing is we've been around long enough that our people have grown up. For example, me, I've been a Satanist for most of my life. I've been a practicing Satanist for 44 years, and a leader within the leadership of the organization for representatives, and I just love for people. I meet Satanists all over the world, and we've been around long enough so that you can see how it's applied as a philosophy as you grow older, as you have kids, and you get married, and you get divorced, and you lose parents, and you have crises in your life, and sickness and illness. How does Satanism really have legs? Does it get you through the tough times? Does it inspire you? Does it strengthen you? Does it focus you? And I can say yes, yes, and yes, based on my experience and the wonderful young people and older people that we attract on a daily basis. They're strong, they're motivated, they're life-loving, they're life-affirming, and they're usually very active in their community. I mean, not everyone, maybe not everyone needs to be or wants to be. Everybody's got their own how politically active they want to be or how community active they want to be. But certainly we have an attitude that we all want to live together. And if you don't hurt me, I'm not going to hurt you. I'm going to give back what you give to me. And usually that makes for a very cooperative person.
Blanche, one more question before we have to go to break here. We've got just a little less than a minute there, but back to our definitions. And I completely messed up my introduction because I couldn't read my handwriting. But what is a Magistra Templari Rex? Well,
we have a leadership in the organization. Our high priest is Peter Gilmore. Our present high priestess is Peggy Nadramia. They're very capable, strong, intelligent, creative people. And I'm sort of the third in line. I was the high priestess for some years until I started that leadership of the organization.
Tonight we're talking about a bit of a controversial topic, but it's not as controversial as you might think, and that's why we've got our guest on tonight, Blanche Barton. Blanche is a Magistra Templari Rex of the Church of Satan. The website is churchofsatan.com. Blanche, let's talk about the Church of Satan. What is the mission of the church?
Well, it's I would say that our mission is essentially twofold. We're not evangelical. You're not going to find Church of Satan knocking on your door at 7:00 on a Saturday morning, or passing out leaflets. People who are interested are drawn to the metaphors, are drawn to the ideas of running your own life and enjoying your own party while we have this glorious life to enjoy. They come to Satanism eventually. They're drawn to it. They look on the website and it makes sense. They pick up the books and they say, gee, I felt this way all my life and I didn't know that there were other people out there. As I say, we don't worship a guy with, tail and horns. We worship ourselves, and we conjure forth power from ourselves to accomplish what we want in our lives. So I would say that the Church of Satan exists mostly to continue clarifying and applying Anton LaVey's philosophy in new emerging contexts, socially and scientifically. Also, we want to let people know, if you're at work, a coworker or another parent or someone in your life, a checker or a bank teller or a nurse, or your doctor turns out to be a Satanist, you shouldn't go screaming down the hall in fright. We want people to know we exist in the community, and you might run across us from time to time. We're not always we don't usually broadcast to people because there is a certain amount of prejudice against Satanism or misunderstanding. People don't understand what it is, and a lot of times we don't want to spend the time to explain what it is because the books and materials are out there. But we do need the Church of Satan to continue to be at the forefront of defining and defending our philosophy and be there as a beacon for people who are attracted to it and do want to apply it for their own betterment in their lives.
Well, let me ask this, Blanche, though. Do you think that the name, the Church of Satan, do you think that inhibits you guys really getting out there? Do you think that hurts what you guys are trying to push and promote by using that name, or do you think that it's a positive aspect?
Well, I do believe it's a positive aspect of it. I mean, what Anton LaVey was doing, let's face it, he wanted to wallop people over the head with the fact that Satan can be perceived as something entirely positive, given the metaphors that we have from Milton and Byron, the Romantic poets, the existentialists. We have a gallery of expressions, as I say, throughout many cultures, not just Western culture, of positive depictions and perceptions of Satan and the satanic. And those are what we utilize. He wanted to shock people. He wanted to let people know that there are alternatives to sort of blindly following what your parents do or what society tells you will make you good or help you go to heaven. What if there's no heaven? What if you make a terrible mistake and you make the sacrifices and you pray and you do everything you're supposed to do, and then there's a big joke at the end. Why not enjoy this party? And it's up to you what you do with your life. We're all about personal responsibility. There's no God to give credit to, and there's no devil to blame for when things go wrong with your life. And that's what Anton LaVey was trying to say. And yes, it is shocking. He wanted to wake people up from their torpor and force them to think.
You said something there that I think has an interesting. It opens up an interesting debate. When you talk about doing the things that would get someone to heaven, if there was a heaven, and if we do those things, and at the end of the day, the joke's on us, there is no heaven, and you've done all these things, aren't those things? Wouldn't they be considered, in most cases, and not all cases, but good for society? These tenets that are taught to us to behave and to act a certain way, to be civil and to be, to love thy neighbor, whatever they are. Aren't they kind of good for society?
Well, some of them are, yeah, but there's also an aspect of a lot of spiritual religions, and I'm sorry to say Christianity in particular, that can encourage passivity, can encourage blindness and ignorance, an adoration of death. That whole thing of worshiping a guy on the cross, that's a little weird to me. And it can lead to a lot of ignorance and anti-science, that has held people back for centuries. It's been, and not to mention, creating other people as devils and allowing people to burn people at the stake and burn animals at the stake and causes a lot of harm and hurt and guilt. The whole idea of guilt, being born in guilt. I mean, there are so many things about that philosophy that I think outweigh the good that it can do. I think that the good can be put in the context of ethics. It doesn't have to be, you don't have to be threatened with hell or damnation to do good. It's been co-opted. I'm an admirer of Arthur C. Clarke, and I ran across a wonderful quote recently about, what was that, about Christianity, that had been co-opted, that morality had been co-opted, and that was a terrible tragedy.
Well, and I will say, I was born into a Catholic family, and of course, when you look through history, you see that there's been just endless deaths associated with Christianity in general, for whatever reason. And like you were talking about, people being burned at the stake, people being crushed by rocks because they were said to be witches and things of that nature. It's definitely where a religion that preaches about love and love thy neighbor and all these other things, it does have a lot of darkness in its history as well. So, and I totally get that, but it also is notorious for persecuting anybody whose beliefs are different than it.
Yes, and that's that's the big problem, and I'm friends with Christians, and they apply the philosophy in many wonderful, beneficent ways. But still, that's what Satanism is about, is a reminder. It's a reminder to any group of people. When you start dividing into we're the good guys, they're the bad guys, then the conversation stops. And we don't vilify anybody. We're the devil. I mean, we're not speaking from any high ground, any moral high ground here. You can tell the devil anything. We've seen it all. Everything that is the darkest and most passionate corner of human existence. There you will find that satanic. But that is true of humankind. Humans are not all love and unicorns and rainbows. We go through some very tough times in any human life, and you need metaphors. You need that strength. And when my back is up against the wall, I don't find inspiration from, the guy hanging on the cross. I just don't. It's not, maybe someone who was raised in that context would find strength and be able to pull up what you need to get through the tough times. But for me, I like the heroism and the romantic endeavor and the persistence, the majesty of the satanic metaphor, and that's what I call up within myself when I go into the ritual chamber, or when I need it. That's what I call up, and it's a metaphor for the strength within me, psychological strength that I can lend to myself. That connection with the immortal, with the eternal.
Blanche, I mentioned some things as we were talking about the things that maybe Christianity would require or expect of its followers to be able to get to that place, which we call heaven in the Christian religion. Are there things that you expect in the Church of Satan that your members do?
Well, yes. In the Satanic Bible, we have the 9 satanic statements, and they're fairly well known, I think. Indulgence instead of abstinence, undefiled wisdom. Satan represents man as just another animal, sometimes better, more often worse than those that walk on all fours, who because of his, quote, divine spiritual and intellectual development has become the most vicious animal of all. Satan represents all of the so-called sins, as they lead to physical, mental, or emotional gratification. These are our guidelines. We're not a dogmatic religion. It's not like you have to go worship on a particular day. Some people do find that they enjoy time in the ritual chamber. Some people don't. But we do practice what we call lesser magic, which is everyday basic psychology, nonverbal communication, things of that nature to get us, through the everyday of life, ingratiate ourselves and do what we need to get to move forward. And also we have greater magic, which is when we formally go into the ritual chamber and we create a psychodrama for ourselves and purge or celebrate whatever we wish. But we do it consciously. When we explore the supernatural, or as we rather would call it, the supernormal, it's a conscious decision. We're not actually, contacting some beings that are going to serve us or something. We're conjuring that within ourselves, that force within ourselves that can only be reached through the poetic. You see, that's why Satanism is not humanism, it's not atheism, because that only stops at the rational, reasonable mind. We are poetic animals. We're storytelling animals, and that's one of the best things about humans is we think creatively, we're storytellers, we're poetic thinkers, and again, this is one of our strengths, and we go into a state, we conjure a state for ourselves using sound and smell and all of the trappings, the black candles and the capes, and to make us help us connect with that spirit, that greater spirit within us, and focus it where we want it to go.
But are Satanists at odds with the God as we know God in, the three major religions?
If we believed in such a God, we would be. But we really don't believe that such a God exists. If there was such a creature who was so capricious, who was so cruel to the very people who worship and love him, who was so irresponsible, even though he's supposed to be omnipresent and omniscient and omnipotent, I would defy that God with my last breath, because he's childish and inconsistent, and he does not deserve anyone's worship.
When you talk about the teachings of the Church of Satan and the books that form the foundation of those teachings, what are those books again?
That form our foundation?
Yeah,
the Satanic Bible.
Yes.
Satanic Rituals. Anton LaVey's books, the Satan Speaks, or some of his essays, the Devil's Notebook, The Complete Witch, Satanic Witch. It was renamed the Satanic Witch. And, of course, Peter Gilmore has come out, our high priest has come out with his collection called the Satanic Scriptures. And all of these, and a lot of writing and interviews all over our website. We have an award-winning, very well-respected website with just endless amounts of information on what Satanism is or is not.
And that is thechurchofsatan.com?
Correct.
Okay. We have about a minute to go here. In addition to the website, if people were interested in getting more explanation and more information about the things we're talking about here tonight, is there any other place in addition to the website that you would send them?
Well, definitely the Satanic Bible, I think, is very important. That's our foundational. It's been in continuous print since 1969, and that will give you the original flavor of what Satanism is all about. And then as you unpack that, it's sort of a trial by fire, because it is very aggressively in the context of Judeo-Christianity. And if you can't get past that, then you probably aren't really a Satanist and would probably want to back away a little bit.
Okay, we're going to take a break here. In the next hour, like we said, we will take your phone calls at 844-687-7669 for Blanche Barton if you have questions. The website is churchofsatan.com. We're also going to talk about the book she wrote, which is a biography of Anton LaVey. It's called The Secret Life of a Satanist, and we'll get into that in the next hour.
If you haven't yet, head over to facebook.com/Beyond Reality Radio, like the Facebook page for us. Then head to BeyondRealityRadio.com, where you can find all the stations we air on across the country. That list is constantly being updated, so check it back and check it often. Also, you can download the free iPhone and Android app right there, which allows you to listen live, catch past shows, join the online chat, and more. You can also just click the pop-up button, which connects you to an online chat room. You can listen to the show right from there while hanging out with a great community of people, or just click the Listen Live button. and you can listen to it while doing whatever. If you download the show from iTunes or anywhere else, do us a favor and just rate it for us, because it helps push it forward and makes it easier for people to find.
We're going to take a few listener phone calls here. We've asked everybody to be respectful, and let's go to John. John has a question. Hey, John, welcome to the program.
Hey, thanks. I heard you mention earlier that you had some friends that are Christian friends, so obviously that indicates that there are some agreements between Satanic and Christians. Can you just name, maybe not necessarily shocking ones, but what are some things that basically the religion of Satanism agrees with Christianity on?
Great question.
I'll hang up listening.
Yeah, great question, John. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you very much, John. And as Jason was saying, so much of it has to do with respect for other people's spiritual path. I have a philosophy that practices magic. I feel, the way that I practice Satanism, and this again is not what all Satanists feel perhaps, but I feel that it has a rich heritage in magic, and part of magic is that we are all intertwined on this planet. We're intertwined with health, with animals, with all of the elements that have always been part of magical practice. And I would say that the Christians that I've interacted with most positively see that interconnectedness and intertwining of humans, and that the forces that go on around us that we don't necessarily perceive all the time. I wouldn't say that there's a plan. They say that there's a plan from God, but what I see is similar to that, but it's the inner me, my demonic, is connected to that ethereal, that eternal force that I can reflect and influence in a positive way. I think that those are probably some similarities that we can meet somewhere with.
Great answer.
Yeah, thanks for that question, John. Let's go to Kathy calling from Pennsylvania. Hi, Kathy. Welcome to the program.
Hi. I wanted to ask, do you use any mind-altering drugs when you conjure up a force in yourself, or any devices like a Ouija board or tarot cards or incense? Or can you put evil on others, like with a spell during your ritual chamber?
You've asked a lot of questions there, Kathy. Let's start with, do you use any devices in the practice of Satanism and or in the practice of the magic that you had referenced before, Blanche?
Well, the first thing I want to address is her question about mind-altering drugs, and I think that's an excellent question. And it was one thing that Anton LaVey was emphatic about, because he started the Church of Satan in the 60s, 1966, ground zero, San Francisco, for LSD and experimentation with a lot of mind-altering substances. And he felt quite adamantly that was dangerous to use that in the ritual chamber, that in general, the use of drugs and alcohol to an extreme extent is a matter of enslavement. So, any Satanist does not want to be enslaved to any ideas or any drugs or any influence from another person, perhaps, that might be detrimental, because, again, you're giving up your own power over your own life. As far as devices, we certainly do use incense, bells, sword, a gong, all the fun, dark trappings that one would hope Satanists would use. We really use them, and we use it to conjure forth a total environment and a concentration and stimulation, emotional, psychic stimulation for ourselves, for the goals that we're setting as our intention in our minds when we go into the ritual chamber. As far as other people, we certainly have avenues for ritualizing or the frustration or the anger that we feel. We do it in form of a psychodrama. Curse someone. We may burn their picture or something, some clothing, something that makes it material to us. But that's mostly as a way to get it out of our system and out into the ethers, so that we're not blocked by these emotions anymore. We also have a lust ritual and a compassion ritual for us or for others that we choose to love and cherish in our lives. We want to to send out compassionate feelings for, or lustful feelings. If you're lusting after someone and it's just really getting under your skin, you're really crazed about it, it's best to get it out in a ritual way, and then you won't be bothered by it anymore. Whether that will affect anyone outside the ritual chamber, you don't even worry about that anymore, because you've done it. You've done it for yourself, and they're no longer part of your existence.
And then another part of that question was like an Ouija board or something like that, which implies that there would have to be some type of spiritual entities that would respond to something like that. Why don't you address that as well?
Well, a lot of us, I find that working with tarot cards, for example, is very helpful for me. I love the beauty, the paintings, and the ideas behind the tarot cards, but I'm not thinking that it's actually predicting my future as much as again, it's an avenue for me to speak to myself, to speak to that maybe greater self that can guide me and can that knows. Sometimes when we're speaking to, it's a subconscious level. Sometimes when we're not sure about things, we're not being perfectly honest even with ourselves. And when you put yourself in front of a Ouija board, I've never used the Ouija board, but I suppose it would work the same way. But tarot cards I find very useful in just sort of dialoguing with myself, to try to get to answers that I'm maybe seeking or confused about or not really sure of. I find that, and perhaps it is a magical process that goes on. When I draw a card, and I think about it, I concentrate on it, I think about what it means to me, just like one would analyze one's dreams and what direction this is leading me to.
Thank you for the call, Kathy. We appreciate those questions. Blanche, one of the things, we talked about some misconceptions here when we opened up our discussion. And one of the things that often come to mind for people when they think of what they would consider to be the Church of Satan, they think of things like, ritual sacrifices or anything like that. I'm assuming that doesn't happen, but why don't you clear the air there as well?
Yes, thank you very much. Throughout the Satanic Panic, that was our mantra. Sometimes I forget to mention, yes, indeed, it says in the Satanic Bible that we do not kill animals. We do not sacrifice animals. We certainly don't harm or sacrifice children. In our worldview, and as Anton LaVey presented the Satanic philosophy, we regard animals and children as sacred, as natural conditions, because they're the closest natural state, and they're not infused with a lot of shoulds and could nots. They're very ego-driven. They're very sensually driven, and look to my cats to show me how to really enjoy life. They say be in the moment. That's what we learn from our animals. Dr. Ray himself was an animal lover. He'd worked in the Clyde Beatty Circus, and he'd been intimate with the tigers and lions that he was working with in the cage. And he loved animals. He had animals throughout his life, so he felt very close to animals. And as I say, that's one of our precepts, is that we are animals. Humans start as animals. That's our foundational idea. And then the rationality and the poetic notions sort of get overlaid on top of that.
Well, Blanche, let me ask this. I've talked with your high priest Peter, and great guy. So in the past, many years, I did the show Ghost Hunters, and I've been involved in the paranormal for going on nearly 30 years now. And I have dealt with cases where we've been called in. Now, I know they're not associated with the Church of Satan, but you do get these other groups that want to associate themselves or call themselves satanic followers or whatever. But some of them do use animals and stuff, but they have absolutely no connection, no ties or anything to the Church of Satan in your belief system, correct?
Absolutely not. And obviously they haven't read the Satanic Bible, because that's foundational to our whole philosophy. Okay.
All right, and let me ask this: as a guy again who's investigated the paranormal, I get sent in by the churches to write up preliminary reports on so-called possessions and things of that nature. Now, 99.9% of those cases we can usually chalk up to over-religious, overactive imagination, looking for attention, over-medicated, self-medicated, some issue like that. But there is a rarity when something negative does seem to be going on with a person. All of a sudden they're speaking languages that haven't been spoken in thousands of years and so forth. Now, what's the Church of Satan's beliefs on a situation like that of somebody who people would say is possessed by some sort of a demonic type entity?
Well, our general policy is that there isn't an avenue for that to be able to happen, because we conjure for ourselves the reality that we live in. Now, if I were confronted with someone who was doing that, I would look more at psychological aspects, as you described, and if all of that was tossed out or addressed, I would think that there would be something on a, as I say, super normal. Not necessarily. It's natural. It's not beyond nature, because if such things exist, we just don't understand exactly what's going on. There might be, we don't pretend to have all the answers. We're seekers just like everyone else, and we don't pretend to have the word of Satan or God or anybody else. I'm very curious, and I'm always intrigued to read about various types of psychic phenomenon. And I think there's more being discovered now for a number of reasons. There's more interaction, more, like the excellent research that you've done for many, many years. I think we have more sophisticated and sensitive devices to explore, minute fluctuations in temperature or sounds or vibrations. That hasn't been done before. Everybody has these devices. Everybody has a phone, a cell phone, or a tablet, or a camera with them at all times these days. So more and more stuff is coming up, and it's easier than ever to network with other people that have unusual experiences, and that's all very exciting to me, because what we see is that what we're practicing in the ritual chamber, what we see as magical results of what we do, is just science hasn't come up with it yet. You know?
Well, exactly, and you make a great point there. Because when we look at it as the paranormal just means above the normal of what we're used to at this point, or what we're aware of at this point. Not saying that it's supernatural or any of that nature, but it's something that's always been there that we're just not 100% aware of how it's able to exist at this point. And that's why it's paranormal. So it's above the normal of what we're used to. And until we come up with those answers, that's what it'll always be.
We've had some people waiting pretty long here. This is Amy calling in from Pennsylvania. Hi, Amy. Welcome to the program.
Hi.
Hi, welcome to the show.
Hi, I have a question for Blanche. I was wondering, have you ever come in contact or seen a demon?
It's a good question. Blanche?
Demon?
Yeah, she asked if you had ever come in contact or actually seen a demon.
That.
Yeah, we're losing you a little bit here, Blanche. The cell phone connection. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Hello?
Yeah, go ahead. We can hear you now. We lost you for a moment.
Yeah, well, it's the demons. That's what happens. They don't want me to say.
Yes, that's true.
But no, I haven't, had Satan step into my living room on a regular basis. But, as I say, we use it in metaphorical terms and poetic terms more than expecting an actual, physical guy with, pointy beard and a tail to come waltzing into the room.
Well, and that's a misconception that we've tried to get out there quite a bit just like the high priest Peter Gilmore had said, the church does not believe in the devil, nor a Christian or Islamic notion of Satan, correct?
Correct.
So, and it's the name. The name is so misleading, and I think people can't get past that part.
Well, and it's very hard when you've been educated in a particular mindset, a certain, group of presuppositions to move away from that again. But I think as our society matures, we're moving away from those expectations, which is, I think, very healthy.
Thanks for the call, Amy. We appreciate the question. Let's talk about Anton a little bit. Tell us about him, and specifically what happened at the point in his life where he started to put all these ideas together and form the church.
Sure. Yeah, well, he was always precocious. You know, he was a musical prodigy, and he was an artist. He was always interested in weird and supernatural and the Fortean, you know, all the stuff that we're all interested in, the odd goings on. And he had a background that led him to read Dracula and Frankenstein, and of course, when the Weird Tales magazines came out with the Lovecraft stories and C. Quinn and all of the lights of the horror genre came out, he was fascinated by that. He also, as I say, he was rebellious, and he left high school to go join the Clyde Beatty Circus as a lion trainer and a keyboardist. But he went on to become a hypnotist and an early psychic investigator, using, you know, whatever tools he had out on the floor and theremin and various machines that were available at the time to do psychic investigation. And he gathered this really interesting group of people around him. But he wanted to explore, you know, magic, and he was giving lectures on vampirism and cannibalism and UFOs and strange goings-on in the 50s and 60s. But his philosophy, as it grew, really came out of his life experience. You know, it was more existential. It was more from the romantic, Byronic, Byron and Shelley and Keats, and the Miltonic vision of Satan. He wasn't a religious scholar. He never wanted to be a religious scholar. And in fact, a lot of the dark magic, you know, like Blavatsky or Crowley at the time, was touted to him. He looked into that, and he really didn't find it very appealing at all. It just seemed confusing and occult and purposely obfuscating. He wanted something that really worked, you know, like one would want something that really focused. So he really thought about it as a photographer and as an artist, and studying Freud and Reich and Jung and thinking about the human mind and why we have religion and what does it do and what is magic really, and he put it all together into a philosophy that worked, and he started gathering these interesting people around him that started practicing magic, and it all ignited in 1966.
Let's take a call from Lori, calling from New York. Hi, Lori. Welcome to the program.
Hiya. I was just curious. How does she feel about politics and with Democrats and Republicans?
Are you asking Blanche if the church has a position on that, or are you asking her personal opinion? Personally. Okay, Blanche, I don't know if you want to answer that, but there's the question.
Well, I don't mind answering. The Church of Satan is, as you make you know, the point, Jason, that we, you know, we're a religious organization, so we don't have a policy regarding political groups. But me myself, I tend to sort of vote. I don't want to affiliate with any one party, because I think that's part of the problem right now, is people get so invested in one party or another party, and they think it's a betrayal if they vote outside that party. I think it's more important that we examine issues. I'm involved in issues that are important to me. I volunteer at a vegan booth to represent veganism and animal rights. I'm involved in, you know, certain environmental issues and ocean issues and things that I think are important to me. A lot of Satanists are either apolitical or they're involved in things that interest them. But again, the important thing is that we can meet and not label ourselves, I'm a this or I'm a that, and we can actually debate respectfully issues rather than, you know, personalities. And
That gives me. All right, thanks.
Yeah, Lori, thank you for the question. We appreciate that. I've got to ask you, going back to 1966 when the Church of Satan was formed by Anton, clearly demographics and belief in religion has changed significantly over those 40 plus years, 50 years, I guess now. I imagine when the Church of Satan was formed, if we look at the way people scratch their heads and kind of raise an eyebrow when you talk about it now, at that point it had to be 10 times that kind of reaction. Was that true?
Oh my goodness, yes. Yes, and there were public rituals, and that's why people were so intrigued by what he was doing. He had a satanic wedding that was, headline news around the world. And the funeral and the baptism of his daughter, and he wanted to make the point. He wasn't just looking for publicity. Some people say, oh, he was a carny, he was looking for publicity. He really was just making the point that Judeo-Christian values don't have a stranglehold on the world, that it's dangerous to be in lockstep with, because at that time, I mean, even my own dad in the 30s, he was an atheist, but he was defiant in that, and people were sort of suspicious about him. They'd question him about being an atheist. Now it's much more of an alternative. But it was shocking, and again, he wanted to be shocking because he thought that was the only way that people would sort of grab them by the shoulders and shake them a little bit, that your life is your party. This is your responsibility, and what you do with it is up to you. Now, this was long before all this self-actualizing and all these self-help books came out. This was, late 50s, early 60s when he was talking about this.
Was Aleister Crowley a Satanist?
I did not call him a Satanist. He didn't call himself a Satanist. He did sacrifice animals, which, by that definition, he was not a Satanist. He was an abuser of women. And Dr. LaVey looked into his philosophy because that was where everybody did, in the 50s. Well, you've got to read Crowley if you're interested in dark magic. And he tried to read his stuff, but he just found it rather obfuscating and pointless, and he does depend on revelation, which Dr. LaVey, was very much against. And it's too mystical. It's just going off the deep end into this, and maybe it sells degrees or it sells some initiatory path if you want to do that. But as far as real magic, there's not much there.
And speaking of real magic, you've touched on the magic topics a few times during a few of your answers to other questions. What is the magic that you refer to? And you've referred to it several times here.
Well, as I say, formally we divide it into lesser magic and greater magic. Lesser magic is persuading people in everyday magical ways, through speech, persuasion, rhetoric, nonverbal communication, cold reading, various methods to achieve your goal, whether that's getting a job, getting an apartment, getting ahead in your life. And then magic is the more formal magic. Put on your robe and go into your ritual, the bathroom on the wall, and have your ritual and psychodrama, and get it out into the ethers and walk away from it.
You're breaking up a little bit on us there, Blanche. I know we already asked about Anton, but your book, The Secret Life of a Satanist, is a biography of him, right?
That's correct. Yeah, it first came out in 1990, and then I put out another revision a few years ago, talking about the last years of his life and where the organization has gone since he passed away. It's been years since he died. Well, a little over actually, 1997. So I think it's a real test of philosophy to see what happens after the original founder passes away. Was it just a personality cult? Was it all about Anton LaVey? Because he was a brilliant man and a raconteur. He was. I think people would be mostly surprised by his sense of humor. And if you read his essays and his writing, you can definitely get that sense of humor and play that he had. But yes, I wrote about Anton LaVey and his life and his philosophy in The Secret Life of a Satanist. And, for some people, that's a really good starting point for Satanism in general, because then you know what kind of man he was and why he did what he did.
Well, and then you also wrote The Church of Satan, A History of the World's Most Notorious Religion. And now, does that break down a lot of the misconceptions people have when it comes to Satanism and the whole Church of Satan?
Yes, that was my intent. Again, it was written around the same time as the biography. It was in the heat of the Satanic Panic, really. And it's a small book, and I'm now expanding and rewriting it. Thank you for bringing it up. But it's going to be a much broader book now because so much has happened. But at the time, we wanted a little handbook that we could give to law enforcement people or people in the Humane Society, police officers who were doing investigations, so that they could know what Satanism was about, what it advocates, and they'd be better prepared to examine sites and evaluate people who were claiming to be Satanists or Satan hunters, and see how real that was.
Well, I think that's important because that's one thing. I've been called in many times by law enforcement to examine different sites when it comes down to so-called Satanists that are, and like I had said earlier, that are using animals for sacrificial means, and some that, and I'm sure you're aware, some that use breeders, which a lot of times are runaway girls that are kept hidden from the public and used for their own purposes, but these are just sects that have popped up claiming that they're part of this whole thing, but they really have no association to the Church of Satan.
That's exactly why the Church of Satan has to exist, is to define and defend the philosophy that Anton LaVey put forth and further it into new scientific and new social contexts. But yeah, there are Satanists, like the doctor said, there are Satanists and then there are nuts. There are people that can do vile things in the name of the Easter Bunny or Jesus Christ, for that matter. But that doesn't mean that they should be held, that someone, a Christian or someone who really likes the Easter Bunny or Santa Claus, should be in the position to say they should be, the majority should be in the position to say what is or isn't, to self-define yourself about what the religion really is, which is what the Church of Satan does and has done for over 50 years now.
Blanche, thanks so much for being here tonight. We're out of time. We appreciate your time and your composure and the information you gave us, and I'll direct everybody, if they have any questions, to go to thechurchofsatan.com.
Thank you so much, Jason. I had a wonderful time, and I really appreciate you letting us, get the truth of our beliefs out.
Well, you have a great night, and we look forward to talking to you again at some point.
Well, Mr. Butts, that was a close call. You're recovering nicely, but good thing you got here for that emergency surgery when you did.
Yeah, I feel great now.
Oh, and here's the bill for what the insurance didn't cover.
What?
Well, there goes another one. Call it, nurse. I've got lunch in 10 minutes.
Crapco presents.
Has this ever happened to you? Go to the hospital for a little surgery only to be stricken by huge bilitis? Well, not anymore with the Crapco Home Surgery Kit.
I was having a little pain in my side, and the doctor wanted $200 to look at me. A couple of minutes later on the internet, I was pretty sure it was my appendix. The wife grabbed the Crapco Home Surgery Kit we got for Christmas, and 20 minutes later, we were on our way to dinner at the Olive Garden.
And cleanup was a snap. Well, except the vomit.
Thanks, Crapco.
I got an estimate of $3,700 for a circumcision. I was able to do it myself in the comforts of my own bed with Crapco's Home Surgery Kit. After a couple minor infections, I was up moving around like a rabbi walking by a mosque at night. And my wife, she was real happy. Thanks, Crapco.
With the Crapco Home Surgery Kit, you can perform most household surgeries in minutes and order the special add-on packs for even more cost savings, like the Cardiacorama, the Orthopalooza, the Bariatric Bonanza, and don't forget the
home augmentation arsenal. Hey, baby, you're looking hot.
Yeah, but I wish these were bigger.
No problem. Come over to my place. I've got the Crapco home surgery kit with the augmentation arsenal. Can you say memories and margaritas? Thanks, Crapco. The Crapco home surgery kit normally retails for $99.95, but order today and you'll receive the home surgery kit, the Orthopalooza add-on, and the decorative Crapco catheter curio cabinet, all for $19.95.
The Crapco home surgery kit is not recommended for all surgeries and in some cases may negate your life insurance or your life. Read your policies for details. Some side effects include removing the wrong organs, scarring, and not living. So order yours today.
Beyond Reality Paranormal is hosted by J.V. Johnson and produced by Orion Palmer and Slick Eddie Edwards. Like us on Facebook and subscribe to our YouTube channel. Please consider supporting the program either through your podcast platform, click on the link in the description, or on Patreon at Joha Productions. If you'd like to be a guest on Beyond Reality Paranormal or you have a recommendation for a guest, contact our producer, Slick Eddie Edwards. Eddie is spelled with a Y at slickeddieedwards@gmail.com.